What's going on, everyone? So today we get to talk about a list that a lot of you have left comments about saying maybe it's the best list in set 3, or at least one of the best, not to mention quite a few different people over out there in the community really standing by it while not actually being all that popular, and that is Kira Green, as you all see behind me. This is certainly one of the more powerful lists. By no means did it underperform in set 2. It did quite well all the way through, really. We even saw a couple of top 8s in planetary qualifiers. I want to say more than a couple. It was one of the better performing decks outside of the Boba lists, right? Boba lists obviously dwarfed anything else. This was up there. This was up there. And in set 3, it's still pretty good. And in fact, we got a bunch of new additions that are really, really solid that I can't wait to talk about and actually play some games with. Before we do, big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon, and I have a TCG player link in the description down below if you want to pick up any of these cards today. Let's talk about Kira Green and some of the new cards. Starting us off with one of the Vigilance cards that you've seen very frequently, and that is Perilous Position. This card is just really, really nice, universal, very versatile removal option. Exhausting random things that can be problematic, even if it doesn't kill them, or just getting through things like shield tokens and removing space units, really good in a lot of matchups. First new card. The second one, Calculating Magna Guard, also on the 3 resource slot. This one's really nice as it gives us a very, very early Sentinel, which we didn't have that many options on 3 resources. Calculating Magna Guard really does work against decks that are trying to rush in damage on the ground, and this is absolutely amazing to fight against that. But then we also have a couple of spots or a couple of cards in the 2 resource slot, including one Ryloth Militia. This one's interesting because it's a 2/3, but then attacks for 3. So if your opponent doesn't immediately go ahead and try to kill this, there's a lot of different 2/3s out there, then what will happen is you could potentially put a shield token on this and kill their 3 toughness units. It's not really all that often where you get a 3 power, 3 toughness unit in this color combination. I've been really quite impressed with Ryloth Militia. It just makes some of the turns a little bit more awkward for your opponent. And along that note, if you were going to go with that kind of shield token and thing like that strategy, or maybe your opponent just decides to kill your Ryloth Militia immediately, guess what? They usually are left with 1 toughness. And that's where something like a Rune Hako comes in absolutely excellently. Finishing off things for -1/-1 with that when play trigger. Also just a 3/2 on turn 1, which is totally reasonable. But I've also had this come up later with like Darth Vader, for example. You go ahead and ambush something, you kill something, you grab a Rune Hako, shrink something else down, maybe just saving you a life, or maybe just being able to kind of get something in the trading range, which is really, really nice. In the later stage of the game, there is one other card that we got to talk about, and that is Devastating Gunship. This is on the 5 resource turn, the same turn that Kira comes down. This card's really excellent in that situation, because one of the things that Kira does is deal a bunch of damage to your opponent's units. And there are just going to be a lot of situations where your Devastating Gunship can come in and just finish something off, that 2 or less remaining HP. But you could also play it before Kira comes down and then play Kira and make it into a 5/3, which is kind of interesting because of that grit. Or you could just give it a shield token, which, pumps it up also, and gives it a shield token after defeating some random space unit, like not a Cartel space unit, but a P-38, 7th Fleet Defender. All those die to the Devastating Gunship. Also, Crafty Smugglers, things like that die to Devastating Gunship. It just seems like this card is pretty at home in Kira. Outside of that, our endgame, still the same endgame: Darth Vader's, Avengers, Devastators, Maws, a little bit of ramp, Super Laser Technician, resupply, and a lot of controlling options. Takedowns, Fell the Dragon, Power the Dark Side, and OB, Overwhelming Barrage. We're going to see if we can win some games, and I think this deck's pretty good. Let's dive into it. Into our first matchup, and this seems like a pretty reasonable hand. I actually really like the Super Laser Technician, and because I'm going to keep the Perilous Position as well, I think I'm going to resource this Magna Guard and the Vigilance. Overwhelming Barrage, just really, really solid. And we're going to start off with an Inferno 4, and that's a resupply. I think I'll put that on top, depending on what we want to do with this Super Laser Technician. There's double resupply. Okay, so we can go ahead and Perilous Position away this Ketsu, but I think I would like to ramp. I think I would like to get down my Super Laser Technician here. And if my opponent decides to go ahead and okay, that is one option that I have. Is just to go ahead and put in an upgrade on the Ketsu. Go ahead and attack probably Kira, or the base rather. and not really worry about the Super Laser Technician. Maybe they'll ping it down. Nope, they're going to hit the Inferno 4. Okay, and my goodness, the great draw of Power of the Dark Side absolutely just destroys my opponent's game plan. Power of the Dark Side just completely removing Ketsu is absolutely insane. And then what we could do here is, what do I want to do here actually? I can go ahead and trade my Super Laser Technician into Casca. I don't even know if I want to deploy Kira this turn, so I think I'm just going to hit their base. And okay, we drew Fell the Dragon, a devastating gunship, and we still have that overwhelming barrage. But now what we have the option of doing, depending on how my opponent goes ahead and plays this, is we can deploy Kira and then hit their Casca with the Super Laser Technician, and then play Devastating Gunship to finish it off. So I think what we'll do is just deploy out the Kira, deal that 2 damage to Casca. If they have something to kill Kira immediately, I am okay with that, right? Takedown coming in, totally fine, because again, we're going to hit that Super Laser Technician into the Casca and then finish it off with a Devastating Gunship, which is going to be amazing, right? Just finish that off. Now we have another threat on the board. Also, Inferno 4 still sticks around, and we are sitting pretty nicely, especially with that Maul draw. That was an excellent draw. We are just going to Maul, hopefully, their Bo-Katan here. Hit the Devastating Gunship out. Let's see. Are they going to deploy Bo-Katan? They are. We're just going to go ahead and kill her. And they're going to claim initiative. So we're going to go pass. And now we're in the late game, right? They have no leader. We have no leader, but we're ahead on resources. And we have the deck with Reinforcement Walkers, Avengers, Snokes, which we have drawn 0 of so far. Darth Vaders. So we are definitely in the advantage. I'm going to resource this Fell the Dragon. There could be a situation where that might be something that I'm not excited about, but we'll see. We're going to go ahead and hit in with Inferno 4 since our opponent can go ahead and finish that off if they want to. Looks like they are going to give a bunch of shield tokens to Casca, which ends up benefiting us, I think, because we are going to... Do I want to go Rune? So they're going to attack. I think we just go Perilous Position on the Casca just to get rid of her. Ooh, top the Vader, bottom the Magna Guard. And then now what we can do is just go ahead and give this a shield token, right? Just to deal some damage and make it so that we are kind of on curve to kill them in a couple turns. Rune Hako coming down. I was trying to figure out a way we could go ahead and play Rune Hako and takedown on the Mandalorian, right? Because 1 less HP would make it get in a takedown range. But we didn't have an extra resource. We drew a second Overwhelming Barrage, which I do like. I'm actually going to resource this takedown. Even though we could go double event this turn, I think realistically, we are just going to absolutely outvalue them in the late game. So if the game goes longer, I am totally okay with that. Let's see what my opponent's got, though. We win in not just this turn, but the next turn afterwards. They're saying GG and they're going to concede. Part of the value of Devastating Gunship is that situation where, oh, I got a spare resource. I'll just drop a shield token on my Devastating Gunship. It's really tough to deal with. And it's a 5 power space unit, right? And it killed something on the way down. Devastating Gunship, I'm telling you, really solid one. Into our next matchup, we got ourselves a match against, looks like ECL Palp. Pretty interesting here. Definitely could be an interesting game. In these controlling matchups, Palpatine does do a lot better, I'll have to say, because they are a control deck, right? And generally speaking, a little bit more value-oriented strategies. So let's see what our opponents got over there. Pike Sentinel, resource. Love to see reinforcement and Darth Vader, especially with a super laser tech in hand. But I think here what we'll do is just play out that super laser technician, and then we'll see if our opponent plays anything before we get down this Rune Hako. If they were playing Vigilance here, I'm just going to attack here. Don't really see a reason not to. Then I would have attacked first because of things like Village Protectors. But I have no idea what to expect in ECL Palp here. I don't know. Vanguard Ace coming down. Pretty weak card in general. Just to give you an idea, this is for each other card you play this phase. So let's say you have a 2 resource and you get 3 powered out. So you have to play 2 other cards. That still isn't that exciting. Like, it's better than a 2 resource 3-2, right? But still not that great. So I think that's one of those cards where it's very, very rare to actually see that get some major value. And honestly, we could just straight up race them, right? Our Rune Hako is doing as much damage as both these Wolfpack Escorts and Vanguard Aces are doing. So we'll just keep doing that, right? And our opponent, one of the big things with the Palpatine here is you really, really want to try and figure out a way to get your heroism units killed early. Because if you don't, then you aren't really using Palpatine at all, and that could be a little bit tricky. So our opponent's going all heroism space here with the Millennium Falcon. Sure. Let's go ahead and claim ourselves the initiative. And now they're going to be a resource behind, or they have to, bounce that Millennium Falcon. Power of the Dark Side looks pretty bad here, but to be honest, we have no other place to make because, we drew a bunch of expensive stuff. So we're just going to go ahead and start hitting. All right, we're just going to start hitting things and see what comes up. Let's go ahead and drop that Rune Hako in. And technically our Kira doesn't really do anything to their Space Force, right? So let's go ahead and attack you with that Calculating Magna Guard. Let's go ahead and, what do you want to do? Let's just attack with a Super Laser Technician. Let's deploy Kira. If they happen to have ECL something, then it probably trades with Kira. I don't know, they could have a lot of different things here, right? But Kira coming down, I mean, yeah, our opponent's got the whole Space Force over there. And our Power of the Dark Side looks pretty bad. If we had one Overlying Barrage, this game would be absolutely just gross. Like, absolutely gross, because we would wipe their entire board. They're going to claim initiative there, and we happen to draw two more insanely expensive stuff to the point where we actually cannot play anything besides our Power of the Dark Side, which does not look good here at this moment. Of course, if we were able to defeat our Super Laser Technician, we could have with the shield token, but I felt like we wanted to get in the damage based on what my opponent's doing. So, yeah, I mean, sure, our opponent's going to hit. We're going to hit for 4, and I mean, the game is over. Game is over. So kind of a weird game, right? If this Vanguard Ace was, let's say, a 3-powered space unit instead, maybe we would have been a little bit closer, right? Because they would have gotten, an additional 2 attacks in, or maybe 3 attacks. Let's say it was an actual 2-power. That'd be 28 damage, right? They had another Surprise Strike or something. That would have been crazy. So really weird game, to be honest. I didn't expect a full space Palp deck, but thank you, good sir, for playing us, and thank you for the combo. Let's move on to the next one. On to game, I believe, number 3, but these things go quick, I'll say that much. This is a reasonable hand, but I think against this heroism green, vigilance deck, we kind of want to look for ramp. So if we can do that, that'd be great. Unfortunately, we didn't get ramp, but we did get a couple of nice ones. I do like Maul and Avenger, and I like the turn 1 play. I think I'm going to resource this Perilous Position. I like Power of the Dark Side in this matchup as well. And look at that. Rune Hako actually just straight up kills Follower over the way, which is also pretty good. Takedown, I think we're going to want to keep. They're going to go Clan Ren Rescuer. And we are going to hit their Clan Ren Rescuer. And then let's see if our opponent decides to hit base. Okay, they do, which means we go Power of the Dark Side. And now we get to pass. And we drew ourselves Devastating Gunship and Super Laser Tech. So the question is, do I want to resource Takedown or Devastating Gunship? I think I'd rather resource the Devastating Gunship. We're not playing against like the space decks and the low toughness decks here. So we'd have to combo it with Kira. And I think I'd rather just get this ramp down or just straight up kill one of their things, right? Let's go Super Laser Tech. And we will attack. And then we are not going to defeat our Super Laser Tech to get Kira out. And the reason for that is, oh my, those some expensive threats. I think I'm actually going to resource, is it? I don't know if it's the it might be the Devastator. So I like the 7 because 7 can go into 8 resource play as well, whereas Avenger's a turn away and the Devastator's 2 turns away. So maybe it is the Devastator, and we can't resource the Takedown. That's the only viable play that we have here. But as I was saying, is I don't want to go ahead and flip Kira, because part of the advantage of flipping Kira is to go ahead and deal damage to your opponent's units, right? And if they deploy Obi-Wan and we were to flip Kira this turn, then we couldn't go like flip Kira, kill Obi-Wan with takedown, and then do something cool like that. So they're going to go, this is the way. Very interesting Mandalorian themed Obi-Wan green here. I was expecting more of a traditional Obi-Wan green with a little bit of ramp and things like that, but they got a Sundari Peacekeeper and a Mandalorian armor, so I guess we'll see what they decide to do with that. Okay, what do you got, opponent? Sundari Peacekeeper, huh? All right, so I think in this spot, I will just go ahead and attack the base. See if they flip Obi-Wan. Okay, so they are going to flip Obi-Wan. And we will go ahead and flip Kira here. Because even if they kill Kira, we get to go ahead and kill Obi-Wan, which is a very, very solid trade for us. They may heal a damage off of... Well, they have to heal a damage off Obi-Wan. And then they'll probably kill Rune Hako here, which is a totally fine exchange. So they'll kill Kira and Rune and heal up Obi-Wan. So they'll be left with... Well, actually, do I even want to use resources this turn? Or do I just want to claim initiative here? I think I just want to claim initiative. Because we are going to be able to win vigilance here, huh? No. We want to get Vader down. So I'm going to kill Obi-Wan with a Super Laser Technician, which is going to work out nicely. And this is the reason why I didn't want to use the Kira ability early, is because 1, I wouldn't have a 2-1 on the battlefield, and 2, I wouldn't have dealt damage to the Obi-Wan. But this situation for us is excellent, right? Because we're going to go ahead and deploy the Vader now, and then we're going to get that when play trigger, and we're probably just going to grab a Super Laser Technician, because that's going to lead into Avenger quite nicely, kill the Sundari Peacekeeper, and now we are in an amazing spot, right? Absolutely amazing. And I didn't actually catch if they ended up getting anything off of the Razor Crest. I don't think they had an upgrade in their discard pile, since the only upgrade they had that I saw was the Mandalorian armor, and they didn't put it on anything. So let's go ahead and 5 into the base. Luke, shrink Vader. Okay. Let's just go ahead and hit into Luke, and now we'll just drop an Avenger, right? Drop an Avenger. Our Darth Vader will be able to kill Luke. Avenger will probably be defeating the Razor Crest. I suppose they can go ahead and use the Obi-Wan action. If they do that, then they might be trying to set up something that saves their Luke. But I mean, we're going to get an Avenger down, and it's going to be really tough for our opponent to really do much here. Let's pass. Overwhelming Barrage, excellent. Vigilance, probably not something that I need, honestly. And I do want more resources, absolutely. So, okay, so they're going to go ahead and vanquish that. And I think here I will just go ahead and Avenger again. I mean, Avenger Part 2, let's go. If they have a Fel the Dragon, sure. We're left with a Vader on the battlefield. We've got them all in hand. Overwhelming Barrage, Fel the Dragon, and a takedown. We are in a pretty good spot here, I'll have to say. And our opponent's going to really struggle against this unless they have a Fel the Dragon or another Vanquish, right? And it removes their Luke. So they only have 4 resources. They have to have Fel the Dragon. If they have the Vanquish, it's still going to be okay for them. It's just that they're going to waste these 4 resources. And the next turn is going to be an awkward turn for them. And we can even finish off this turn by, well, apparently making our opponent disconnect. So good game to our opponent. That was pretty straightforward. And, well, don't know about the Mandalorian Obi-Wan. Next up, we got ourselves a matchup against Cad Green, and this is a matchup where I don't even know if I want to make a turn 1 play necessarily. We have a lot of turn 1 plays. Instead, I'm going to mulligan and then hope for a little bit more value-oriented hand, and this is something that I was looking for, right? I'm going to resource this Maul, and I'm probably going to resource this Perilous position, since Power of the Dark Side is a really nice turn 2 option. And so is Resupply. And then if we resupply, we can immediately play the Devastating Gunship. So we have a lot of different options here. Not to mention, if we go Resupply into Devastating Gunship, that's also the turn that Kira can come down. And we're going to pass here. I think this is a pretty standard play. You would have done this against any Cad Bane. You don't want them playing a card in response to you playing a card. It's just going to be pretty awful in terms of how that hand shapes up. But in this spot, we would have loved that Perilous position, right? They're going to resupply. We're going to resupply. And then we are probably just going to Devastating Gunship away that Crafty Smuggler. And there's another resupply. I think in this spot, I get rid of the Super Laser Blast because we have a lot more late game potential. And I think starting from this point onward, we're actually going to want to resupply next turn and probably play Power of the Dark Side. We're going to kill off the Crafty Smuggler here with our Devastating Gunship. And then we're probably going to flip Kira and then kill whatever they have. And so we're going to have a Devastating Gunship that's a 5-powered attacker. And if they play a space unit, that's fine. If they play a removal option, that's also fine. We're going to get Kira down, or we might just take initiative and we're going to be ramping a little bit harder and a little bit better than they will. Looks like they have a Boba Fett here, and they're going to deal damage to our Devastating Gunship, but we're just going to deploy Kira here, and we're going to kill Boba Fett, and suddenly we are left with a 7-powered Kira and a 5-powered Devastating Gunship. And we're going to have 6 resources next turn to where we can go resupply plus Power of the Dark Side. And now we are in an amazing spot. And by the way, if they use Cad Bane's ability, all they're doing is powering up our Devastating Gunship. So this is a really, really bad position for my opponent to be in, especially considering we are in the late game, or we're getting to the late game as the Vigilance Villainy command deck, right? And we haven't even resourced a bunch of our expensive stuff. We've resourced 1 Maul, but we got so much more here in terms of potential. We're going to deal 1 damage to our Devastating Gunship here, and we're going to Perilous Position away that Crafty Smuggler because we want to set up a Power of the Dark Side on their Cad Bane. And it's a very good chance then if our opponent wants to get more value from our Cad Bane and their Cad Bane, they're going to deploy it here, and that sets up a Power of the Dark Side on Cad Bane, which is why I went with Perilous Position over Resupply. And boom, they're taking initiative. We get in for 13, and we set up a Darth Vader next turn. This game has been pretty much textbook in terms of value and sequencing of plays. There isn't really anything that has surprised me. 4-Lom, sure, trade with Kira. If they use the Cad Bane trigger, we're just going to power up our Devastating Gunship even more, which is going to be nice. Let's see what they're going to do. Yep, we'll deal 1 to the Devastating Gunship. Sure, trade with Kira. We're going to hit in for 7 points of damage, and then we're going to get down to Darth Vader. And yeah, I'm just going to play that Darth Vader. What do we grab? We have an Inferno 4 potential and a Rune Hako. I'll grab the Inferno 4. No ambush, Pike Sentinel bottom, takedown bottom. We're going to be searching for things like Avenger, things like Devastator, more Darth Mauls, or more Darth Vaders rather, Snoke, those types of things to finish out the game. And this game's completely over, to be honest. Pretty textbook game. They say this is pointless, GG. And I mean, that was like, Cad Bane Green is a pretty good deck, and that was really, really, really smooth. Now, our opponent could have been maybe trying to play around Power of the Dark or things like that, but to be honest, it's really tough, right? Because they are on a clock. If we get to the late game, there's a very good chance that their deck is just not going to be able to compete. They can't compete with Avengers. They can't compete with Vaders back to back to back unless they have their own. And even if they do, it's not backed up by Power of the Dark Sides and Avengers and Super Laser Blasts and Snokes and everything like that. So another pretty easy and clean game from the Kira Green. Got ourselves a very interesting matchup against Han Green, which could be a really scary deck for this one. This is one of our tougher matchup, I'd say, and we're going to mulligan this because we are looking for a turn 1 play, and we did end up getting it. We're going to go to resource that Avenger and probably resource this Darth Vader. I know it seems a little bit odd, but we really need a bunch of early game plays to compete. And the reason being is if they do pull out ramp, also tech DJ, because they're ramping, it is going to be really tough for us to deal with that. Really, really tough. Here, they've got themselves an R2, which ends up being reasonable, not insane, but they're going to discard a Marauder. Both those are really not scary. Again, what we're really scared of are things like ramp into tech, into DJ, that type of stuff, right? Because despite what you are seeing, the tech DJ could still come out simply due to the fact that if tech comes out, it's just a single cunning, not double cunning. Here, I think what we'll do is just go ahead and hit the R2 because we are going to be the more controlling option and we are going to resupply this turn. I could have gone with the Perilous Position to kill R2 for free and not take any damage, but this ends up working a little bit better for us. Double Power of the Dark Side. We're going to resource the Super Laser Technician because we are going to be playing that control game. Very much so. Very, very much so. And I'm going to be takedowning this Ezra. Just use up my resources for the potential to use 2-3 resource plays next turn. And our opponent hasn't gotten any use out of their Han yet. That does not mean that we are in a great spot necessarily, but we're in a pretty reasonable spot. We did resource 2 Avengers and a Darth Vader, and we're going to be looking for those soon. So we're just going to hope that they come. And depending on what my opponent does here, we might use Kira to go ahead and kill the R2, which will go ahead and leave our Ryloth Militia to be a 3-1. Okay, they're going to go ahead and attack with R2. I will go ahead and deploy out the Kira, and I will go ahead and kill R2 with Kira if they let me. Bright Hope. Are they going to return? Okay, they are. And that's honestly completely fine with me because we are now going to pressure them, especially with our hand here. We have double Power of the Dark Side, which could be really bad for my opponent. And heck, we have double Perilous Position, double Power of the Dark Side, which is really scary for our opponent, I'd say. They could have like a Plo Koon here, but we're going to just go Power of the Dark Side to get rid of that Bright Hope. And if they deploy Han, we are Power of the Dark Siding a second time. And we're going to start with Power of the Dark Side because if they do deploy Han, we want to prevent that Han Solo 7 turn. And so now they don't really have an option to Han Solo 7 because we have Power of the Dark Side. And Syndicate Lackeys can come down. Sure, kill Kira. We're going to go ahead and attack in with Ryloth Militia. If they have Han, we Power the Dark Side it away. And suddenly, they don't even get an extra resource out of that. And, well, fortunately for them, they have an R2 to hit. But that's going to be pretty us favored, I'd say. Now we're just looking for more expensive options, better plays that we could be making. Because we did draw a lot of our Power of the Dark Sides here. And we're hoping for, well, that's a Maul. That's exactly what I wanted to see, to be honest. I am just going to be dropping Maul right on that R2's face here. And we'll see what my opponent has. They have the potential to have a 7 resource play this turn. So the other option I have would be to go Perilous Position on R2 and then Perilous Position the Han Solo if they deploy it, because they will be able to go ahead and get down that Han Solo here. So maybe what I'll do is start off by attacking into their base for 3, and we'll see what my opponent has. If they start with a resource with Han, it makes me think that they're going to want to get down a Han unit. So what we'll do here is pass, because I am interested in getting down this Maul, but I don't really want it to be killed, especially if we draw something weak. So they have a B1 security team, huh? Okay, in that case, I will go ahead and deploy the Maul just to go ahead and get in for some damage and use up my resources. And now we are in a really good spot. Really good spot. My guess is that they're trying to set up some sort of 7 turn. Ooh, they're going to pay one. They're going to pay one from Han. So they don't even have the Han Solo unit coming down this turn, potentially. We're just going to kill the R2, get bodies off the board, and then we're going to hit their base for a little bit. It looks like at this point, they are going to get down a Han Solo, or maybe it's going to be a Enfys Nest. So we're going to deploy the Snoke so that the Han Solo unit doesn't actually kill anything but the Maul here. Or it doesn't kill the Snoke, and it's going to shrink down their Maul, and now, or shrink down their Han. And now what we'll do is attack in for 3, because that forces them to take initiative, and they didn't, which means we win. But that's set up for a Snoke one-shot next turn. And in Han Green, I don't know if they really have anything to avoid that, is why I went for that attack. They could have a Syndicate Lackeys, but that doesn't one-shot Snoke. They could have, I suppose the thing that they could have is like a B1 security team, but that doesn't really help either, because what we do is just Perilous Position Han Solo down, and now they have less resources. So that was a pretty interesting one. And I do like how that last turn went, because if I had gone for the Maul, it looks like they had the Han in hand, which means if that I had gone for the Maul, they get the resource down, they put down their Han Solo, and suddenly they kill my Maul for kind of free, and they put us in kind of the back foot, right? We got to deal with the Han before we get down our big stuff. So I do like how that last turn went. And, well, no Tech DJ seen, which means that we are in the advantage. Nice one. Let's move on to the next. Into our next matchup, I hope. we're against the mirror match, but we're running the 30 HP base and our opponent is running ECL, which is a very interesting discussion. I think there are merits to both, but at least in our deck, we actually just have well, I say all that and they disconnect. But as I was saying, they have very, very few options in this deck to actually ECL out. Like our best ECL option is probably Devastating Gunship or maybe Super Laser Tech. So our opponent has to have something else. And well, looks like our actual matchup is going to be that double red Mace Windu, which is going to be a fun one. A little bit of a fun one. I'm excited to see this one. I think the deck that people are playing with this is a Mace Windu burn deck. And then I say that they disconnect again. No one wants to fight the Kira green, I suppose. Let's go ahead and just join up another game. You guys get to see all the ins and outs here. We get ourselves a new Han green matchup. Awesome. Love to see that. And this is a pretty reasonable hand. I really like Devastating Gunship in this matchup because if you think about it, they can go ahead and play all manner of things that just get absolutely destroyed by our Devastating Gunship. Rune Hako turn 1, Super Laser Technician turn 2, all of which are pretty good stuff here. And, well, looks like our opponent's going to go in with that Maz Kanata and another Super Laser Technician here, which I think we will go ahead and resource. And I actually am going to just start off by trading with that Maz Kanata here. We do not want that getting to the point where it's too big to where we can actually not trade with it. So we're going to go Super Laser Technician here, and we are going to set up pretty nicely for the rest of the game, because we probably are going with the attack into Sabine, playing a Devastating Gunship. And, ooh, they have another play with Han here, do they? Do they have another play with Han here? That could make things a little bit more tricky depending on what they have. Ooh, Heroic Renegade. Okay. So Heroic Renegade is not actually that scary. Fell the Dragon could be okay here. Probably resource this another Avenger because we're going to be a while till we get there. And I'm going to train with that Heroic Renegade because we're going to be deploying Kira. And we are going to be able to defeat Sabine with that Devastating Gunship, which looks pretty nice for us. And we could even go with that Overwhelming Barrage here, potentially, if we need to. So let's go ahead and kill off the R2 here to set up for if they do decide to play a Poe Dameron here. Because if they go with Poe Dameron, I much prefer my chances in this way. But now they went with Battlefield Marine, which means I'm going to go back to that Overwhelming Barrage and just wipe both units off the face of the battlefield here. And then leave behind Akira and my opponent on one card, which is really nice for us. So Inferno 4 looks a little bit odd, but I think I'm going to keep it. I changed my mind. I was debating whether or not I wanted to keep it because I could go Fell the Dragon or Takedown plus Inferno 4. Looks like our opponent does have ECL here, and they're going to kill my Kira, but unfortunately for them, we're just going to finish it off with a Devastating Gunship, and that trade looks pretty nice for us because they have no ECL anymore. And, well, unfortunately, they've got Han, but Han is pretty weak. Takedown part 2, I think I'll resource that. I'd rather have the versatility here, and I am going to go with that Darth Vader. And let's see what we grab. I suppose we'll grab the Pike Sentinel here just to prevent more damage, and then we will ambush, get that 5 damage over on Han. Looks like they get the Republic Attack Pod. We're going to go and attack in for 3. Since our opponent, yes, they could take initiative, but I don't really care if they do. Magna Guard and Resupply are the draws. The only thing I'd be scared about is like a Crate Dragon at this point, and we're still a turn away from that, assuming they resource this turn, which they did not. And then here, I will just go ahead and kill off that Han with my Darth Vader. It's going to prevent them from using that Han action this turn, which is going to be pretty relevant. And now we have Fell the Dragon plus Takedown, which gives us 2 different removal options, which I quite like. So let's go ahead and attack in to their base for 3. And let's see if they have any other plays here. Ooh, okay. We're going to go Fell the Dragon on Republic Attack Pod, and then we're going to go Takedown on the Hu Yang, and then we're going to go pass, because we will finish off that red 3 with that Devastating Gunship here. And here I'm not going to resource anything. I know we could draw... Oh, they surrendered, I suppose. As I say, I know we could draw Devastator, which puts us out of range of 1 card in our deck. But if we draw more cheap things, I'd rather have like Magna Guard, Power the Darkside plus Inferno 4 on this turn, and we have a good setup, right? We kill their red 3, we can Power the Darkside away another thing, and then hopefully Perilous Position plus Darth Vader attack another thing, which puts us in a good spot. But Honestly, that game was pretty straightforward. And as soon as our opponent had like that ECL Anakin into killing Kira, setting up for our Devastating Gunship, really, really sweet. Guys, Devastating Gunship putting out some massive, massive work today. It is an excellent, excellent card. And lastly, what better way to finish it off than one of the best decks in the format in Sabine Green. And what do we got here? A pretty reasonable hand, actually. I'm going to resource this Inferno 4 and Reinforcement Walker. Takedown is really good against Sabine, and so is Power of the Dark Side, as well as this 3/3 on turn 1, depending on, of course, where they go. If they go into space, then it's going to be a little bit less fortunate, but we will have to see, I suppose. Perilous Position was an excellent, excellent draw. We're going to resource, I suppose, this other Overlying Mirage, and if they have like a Wing Leader here, well, we're going to Power the Dark Side away that A-Wing, no doubt in my mind. And we'll see. They got a Fighters for Freedom. Okay, let's claim initiative here. And let's see. We got a Rune Hako. So I think I could save Takedown for the Sabine, but I'm just going to Perilous Position the Fighters for Freedom and then kill it with my Ryloth Militia here. And it looks like they're setting up for Sabine plus Darksaber is my guess. Oh, they don't have Darksaber. Okay. You're going to deploy Sabine, get in an attack here, and we're going to be able to kill off their Sabine unit here. Pike Sentinel, Avenger's a little bit expensive. Let's go ahead and just kill their Sabine unit. And we'll see what my opponent does with this Sabine leader. If they attack here, I think I just go pass. And if we do nothing here, that's okay with me. I could take down the Sabine, but I think my opponent's got a Podameron and they're trying to ECL out to kill Kira. So now they have to determine whether or not they want to deploy it. And if they do, it is absolutely a nightmare scenario because we'll be able to take down their Podameron and kill Sabine, all the while pumping up our Kira and leaving it on the battlefield. So I think in this spot, my opponent's in a little bit of a pickle, and yeah, they decide to do nothing, which is really, really rough for them, I have to say. But there isn't really that many great options, to be honest. So let's see what my opponent decides to do here. They're going to attack, and we're going to pass here yet again. We're going to get to the Maul Man of potential. Okay, they got a For a Cause here, which is perfect. We are going to go with that Kira deploy, and then maybe even the Vigilance here, which could do some work. So let's go ahead and deploy Kira. And they don't have ECL for... Well, they have double For a Cause. What an excellent, excellent situation for them. But we do have the heal defeat Sabine. Or do I want to heal shield? No, let's heal defeat. And then attack their base. The other option I have was to hit Sabine, heal shield, and that might have been a better way to go about things, to be honest. That prevents something like a Wrecker coming down and just one-shotting this Kira. But I think we're in a pretty decent spot. They have two. There's the Wrecker here. And let's see if they decide to go ahead and not do the damage. Yep, that's what I would have expected from them. We're going to go take down that. And now we're going to go Pike Sentinel here. And our opponent is in a good spot, right? They had double For a Cause, which put them in a great spot to kind of stall out the game. And I think what I should have done last turn was hit the Sabine and then heal shield rather than do what I did, because that would have left behind a Kira, and then they would have had to deal a bunch of damage to it in order for them to have a real good shot here. And we're going to go Maul. And I will resolve the ambush. Unfortunately here, we need our opponent not to have another For a Cause. So they need to have the third For a Cause, or we need to draw another Vigilance or something of that note, because if they go For a Cause here, then we are kind of in a bad spot. Avenger was a pretty reasonable draw, because we'll be able to kill off their red 3 and then set up lethal next turn. So let's go Avenger here. And we'll see what my opponent has. A-Wing, huh? We're going to go ahead and attack in with Maul for 7. And that's going to put it in a position where our opponent dies to another attack. So they have to claim initiative, and then we can get in for some more damage. And then our opponent, what could they have here? Rebel Assault, doesn't it? Heroic Sacrifice would be the way to go. Rebel Assault, 1 point of damage short, and that's going to be the end of the game. The critical point in that game to where it actually ended up being that close was actually my mistake, at least in my opinion. I don't know what they had in hand, but let's say they didn't have anything. They were going to go with the Wrecker play. I should have attacked the Sabine, and then I should have gone ahead and shielded my Kira, healed the base. Sabine would have been at 6 power, which means if they wanted a Wrecker would have, well, gotten in a little bit more damage, but it would have died, which means we could have gone with a more expensive play afterwards, which would have been nice. Although maybe that extra damage to my base would have been the downfall, right? Because they had ECL'd out the Wrecker without going ahead and dealing the 5 damage. So we were at, I believe it was 4 toughness, which means that they hit us for an extra or 3 less than that would have been. So really, really close in that spot. But it really depends on every single situation that went through, right? Because they had the double 4 cause the turn prior. That put us in an interesting spot since we were trying to stall out the game, and they had the perfect cards for us stalling out the game, right? Dealing damage, not having to interact with our opponent, or in their case, which is really nice. So pretty sweet game and really, really close, right? 29 damage. It doesn't get any closer than that. And that's a situation where ECL would have been absolutely horrible, where you're in a super aggressive matchup or one that can deal a lot of direct damage to you, and you don't really have that many great ECL options, right? You have like Gideon and things like that, but those aren't amazing options to really get you back in the game, just to help you kind of dominate the board, which isn't necessarily something good enough with K2s, 4 causes, and things like that on the battlefield. So what did we learn with Kira Green? Well, a few things. First off, 30 HP base or ECL. We talked a lot about this throughout the games and things like that. 30 HP base is the one that I've found way more success with. Vigilance, Command, Villainy doesn't actually have that many great ECL targets, and the cards that you would be putting in your deck for ECL are a little bit weaker and honestly very tough to really get value out of without ECL. Rook is a great ECL option, but then playing him and then getting him exhausted or something like that can be absolutely horrible. Gideon's a 5/5, which doesn't actually ECL all that well into Podamrins and Wreckers and things like that. I just found way more success with that 30 HP base. Not to mention, you have to lower all the other cards to put those cards in your deck, which could be a little bit tricky. One of the standouts, Devastating Gunship. This to me is the strongest new option from set 3 for Kira. There were so many games there where we're just picking off random units, but also where we can set it up with Kira. And it also becomes a threat because not only can you deal damage to itself when you flip Kira if it lines up well and make it a 5/3, but you can also put a shield token in it, which makes it a 5/3 shielded space unit, which is really, really annoying to kind of deal with in some matchups. Ryloth Militia ended up being pretty good, just being as a 3/3 body. Rune Hako, also pretty good in some games where we got that -1/-1. And then, of course, you still have the standard Kira Green Shell. I'll say the one card that I am not 100% convinced on yet is the Calculating Magna Guard in this deck. It does do some work. We didn't really get to see the hyper-aggressive matchups besides like Sabine, for example. And we didn't draw Calculating Magna Guard in that matchup. So hard to say, but in my experience, the matchups like Sabine are where Calculating Magna Guard do have a lot of value. If they start Battlefield Marine and you're able to go turn 2, just slap down a Calculating Magna Guard, suddenly it's really tough for our opponent to get in damage. And unless they have like a wing leader or whatever, that could be a little bit rough for our opponent. And even if they do, it ends up being probably like trade your 2-drop and your 3-drop for their wing leader up Battlefield Marine, which is usually a pretty good situation for you as well. But just play around with it. I will say the late game in this deck is absolutely massive. Darth Vaders, Devastators, Avengers, Snokes, Walkers. If you get to the late game, the only decks that can really compete are other Vigilance, Villainy, Command decks like Kira or hard control decks. And that's where it can get a little bit tricky because your opponent probably is just playing more removal and better late game than you are. But, well, that remains to be seen. Because Bossk Blue doesn't have Darth Vader's, which is a pretty good card, I'll say. Thanks for watching, everyone. This is a sweet deck, and definitely one of the better decks in the format. Whether or not it's the best, I'll leave that for you all to argue in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.